When does Israeli permanent residency expire and what can be done about it? Hi, my name is Joshua Pex. I'm an Israeli immigration lawyer, and in this video we're going to talk a little bit about expiration of Israeli permanent residency and what legal steps can be taken. So first of all, what is a permanent resident in Israel? As you know maybe from other videos, a permanent resident in Israel has almost all the rights as an Israeli citizen. They get the Israeli national insurance, they have medical security, and in the day-to-day life they have all rights as citizens. The only difference is, and this is a big difference, is that only citizens hold an Israeli passport, and also only citizens can vote for the parliament, for the Israeli Knesset. Other than that, there may be a few other small differences that only citizens can do, but in general, as a permanent resident, you can live in Israel, it's indefinite, and you can also vote for the municipal elections if this is important for you, and you're here in Israel, but there are certain cases where permanent residency can expire, they call it. So remember, permanent residents have Israeli ID, but usually they have also a passport from another country. So in Israel there are two main groups of permanent residents. The biggest group, and we're talking about a few 100,000 people, mostly Arabs from East Jerusalem, but also other places. So they have Israeli permanent residency, but also a passport from Jordan. Now, many times the children or grandchildren even, they don't even have physically the passport, but they're still considered citizens of Jordan and permanent residents in Israel. The second group of permanent residents are those who made aliyah to Israel, being Jews or descendants of Jews. So they made aliyah, but they don't want to give up their original citizenship, and that country they come from doesn't allow dual citizenship. So they made aliyah, but in order not to give up their original citizenship and passport, they received permanent residency, so they're living here in Israel, but have again a passport from another country. So these permanent residents are here in Israel, and as long as they're here, this status stays. But there are some situations where permanent residency can expire, and there are two main issues. One is if your center of life is no longer in Israel for more than 7 years. So if this permanent resident moves to another country and settles there, then after 7 years, the permanent residency in Israel can expire. The other situation is where they receive permanent residency or citizenship from a third country, not the country that they came from originally, but from another country. And also in this situation, their permanent residency can expire. So what can be done legally? First of all, there are different rulings and judgments of the courts, because a person can, for example, is a permanent resident in Israel, move to another country, marry there, study there, but then when they come back to Israel, suddenly they can't live here anymore, but their family is here and they've been here their whole life. So there are certain rulings of the court that say, no, this person needs to have his permanent residency given back, or it couldn't have been canceled. And also there are situations where the Ministry of Interior themselves didn't follow their own procedures, and then you can attack this cancellation or the expiration of permanent residency based on the fact that the state themselves, for example, didn't send a notice in advance or didn't do the interview. So there are ways you legally can challenge this issue. Most of the cases of cancellation of permanent residence have to do with Arab Israelis that are here in Israel, but then they move to, or they're suspected, the Ministry of Interior suspects that they moved to the West Bank, and then they are no longer living in the territory of Israel and their permanent residency is cancelled. So in these cases, and also in other cases, you need to submit many documents that show that your center of life was actually in Israel. Anything you can think of, affidavits, rental contracts, school of children, payment of bills, everything that proves that you've actually been living in Israel this whole time and not somewhere else. So if you've had any trouble in cancellation of your permanent resident or have questions about immigration to Israel, we'll be happy to help.